Hello and welcome to CVR News Network. You're watching CVR English. Welcome to World 360 with me, Sandeep. The details. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a grand ceremonial welcome and guard of honor upon his arrival in Maldives, marking the start of a two-day state visit. The visit coincides with Maldives' 60th Independence Day and 60th anniversary of India-Maldives diplomatic relations. In a rare gesture, President Mohammad Muizzu personally welcomed Prime Minister Modi at the airport, underscoring a diplomatic reset between the two nations after recent tensions. Modi's presence as a guest of honor at the national celebrations highlights India's commitment to its neighborhood first policy and its strategic interests in the Indian Ocean region. The visit also includes bilateral talks, inauguration of India's assisted development projects, and the signing of the key MOUs aimed at strengthening economic and maritime cooperation. This week in business, Japan and the US sealed a major trade deal that boosts American exports and include $550 billion investment pledge from Japan. Tariffs have been balanced and Japan's market is now more open to US agricultural and automotive goods. Meanwhile, Tesla faced its worst quarter in the decade with a 12% drop in revenue and growing competition from Chinese EV makers. Elon Musk admitted tough quarters ahead as regulatory credit revenue shrinks and Model Y deliveries fall short. Despite launching new products, Tesla's stock plunged 9%, wiping billions of its valuation.
To why Elon Musk says Tesla. Donald Trump.
But I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan.
The rate is less than threatened and will cut the current duty on Japan's key car exports. The news sent auto stocks surging in Tokyo, and one analyst said it could also mean the country can dodge a recession. 12% was the plunge in sales for Tesla, marking its second straight quarterly drop. And Musk said the firm could face a few rough quarters, not helped by Washington phasing out support for EVs. A cheaper new model could offer a boost, but production won't ramp up for a while and investors aren't happy, with Tesla shares plunging following the deal had become politically charged, after Paramount paid millions to settle a lawsuit brought by Trump over reporting by its CBS News unit. Critics, including Late Show host Stephen Colbert, have called the payment a bribe to secure the merger's approval. Says it will invest in the US by 2030. The drugs giant follows rivals in making a big pledge, as the industry scrambles to prepare for possible US tariffs. For now, it remains unclear when new duties might kick in, or at what level they will be General Motors as a result of Trump's tariffs. The auto giant says the trade turmoil could cost it $5 billion over the full year. Analysts say GM may need to cut investment plans to make up for the cost of the tariff. Japan doing a deal on trade, to why Elon Musk says Donald Trump.
French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will formally recognize the State of Palestine at the UN General Assembly in September, aiming to revive the two-state solution and bring peace to the Middle East. Macron emphasized the urgent need to end the war in Gaza and deliver humanitarian aid, framing the move as a moral and diplomatic commitment. The decision drew sharp criticism from Israel, with Prime Minister Netanyahu calling it a reward for terror and the US expressing concern over the unilateral recognition. France will become the first G7 nation to take this step, potentially influencing other countries to follow the suit.
President Emmanuel Macron said on Thursday that his country plans to recognize a Palestinian state in September at the United Nations General Assembly. Macron published a letter sent to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, confirming France's intention to press ahead with recognition and work to convince other partners to follow suit. With the move, France would become the first major Western country to recognize a Palestinian state, potentially fueling a movement so far dominated by smaller nations generally more critical of Israel. Israel has been waging a devastating war in Gaza since the Palestinian militant group Hamas's deadly attack on the country on October 7, 2023. Israel maintains that recognizing a Palestinian state now would be equivalent to rewarding Hamas. Israeli officials have spent months lobbying Paris to prevent what some have called a nuclear bomb for bilateral ties, and news of Macron's decision on Thursday sparked anger in Israel, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the move, quote, rewards terror and risks creating another Iranian proxy. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it played into Hamas's hands and was a, quote, slap in the face to the victims of October 7th. Macron had been leading towards recognizing a Palestinian state for months as part of a bid to keep the idea of a two-state solution alive, despite pressure not to do so. Now the announcement comes ahead of a UN ministerial meeting on the subject next week. The timing is aimed to give the French team a framework to work with other countries that are also considering recognizing a Palestinian state or have misgivings over doing so. French President Emmanuel Macron.
The U.S. Federal Communication Commission has officially approved the $8.4 billion merger between the Paramount Global and Skydance Media, transferring control of major entertainment assets like CBS, Paramount Pictures, and Nickelodeon to tech heir David Ellison. The deal sparked the intense debate of the Paramount paid $16 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump over a CBS 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, raising concerns that the settlement influenced regulatory approval. The FCC's 2-1 vote split along the party lines, with Republican-appointed chairman Brendan Carr praising Skydance's commitment to unbiased journalism, while Democratic Commissioner Ana Gomez condemned the move as a cowardly capitulation and a threat to press freedom. As a part of the deal, Skydance pledged to appoint an ombudsman to oversee editorial fairness, but also agreed to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Paramount Global and Skydance Media have won approval for a merger. US regulators cleared the $8.4 billion deal on Thursday. It will put well-known names like CBS, Paramount Pictures, and the Nickelodeon cable channel under the ownership of Skydance boss David Ellison. But the deal has become politically charged after Donald Trump sued CBS News over what he said was unfavorable coverage. Paramount later paid $16 million to settle a lawsuit brought by the president, even though lawyers said the case had no legal merit. Late Show host Stephen Colbert called the payment a big fat bribe. Days later, his show was cancelled, though Paramount said that was a financial decision unrelated to politics. The Federal Communications Commission approved the merger in a 2-to-1 vote split on partisan lines. Chair Brendan Carr, a Trump appointee, said the new owners had made commitments to unbiased journalism. But Democratic FCC member Ana Gomez, the dissenting vote, accused Paramount of cowardly capitulation to the Trump administration. She also said the regulator was imposing never-before-seen controls over newsroom decisions. The FCC says Skydance has told it the merged firm will appoint an ombudsman to evaluate complaints of editorial bias. It has also pledged not to do any diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives, which Trump believes are discriminatory. The Paramount empire was built by late tycoon Sumner Redstone and once spanned movies, cable TV, radio and publishing. But the firm has seen its value tumble in recent years as it struggled to navigate an entertainment business upended by streaming video. Skydance is a TV and film studio founded in 2010 by David Ellison, son of Oracle chairman Larry Ellison. Paramount Global and Skydance Media have won approval for a merger. US regulators cleared the $8.4 billion deal on Thursday. It will put well-known names like CBS, Paramount Pictures and the Nickelodeon cable channel under the ownership of Skydance boss David Ellison. But the deal has become politically charged after Donald Trump sued CBS.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen declared that EU-China trade ties have reached a clear inflection point during a tense summit in Beijing, marking 50 years of the diplomatic relations. The meeting, shortened to a single day at China's request, was dominated by disputes over the trade imbalances, export controls, and China's perceived support for Russia amid the Ukraine war. Von der Leyen urged Beijing to rebalance and relationship and increase market access for the European companies, while Chinese President Xi Jinping called for proper handling of differences and warned against protectionism. Despite the friction, both sides signed joint climate statement committing to deeper cooperation ahead of the COP30 summit in Brazil. Walmart is rolling out a powerful new suite of the AI-powered super agents aimed at revolutionizing how customers shop and how company runs its operations. These agents built on agentic AI, which allows for autonomous decision making, will serve four key groups: shoppers, store employees, suppliers, and developers. For customers, the AI Sparky will offer personalized recommendations, automate recording like plan events like themed parties, and even generate recipes using computer vision to analyze the fridge contents. Employees will benefit from an associate super agent that simplifies HR tasks and provides real time sales data. Suppliers and advertisers will use Marte to streamline onboarding the campaign creation, while developers will have a dedicated agent to test and deploy future AI tools. Walmart aims to have 50% of its total sales come from e-commerce within 5 years, positioning these super agents as a central interface for all the AI interactions. While the company hasn't confirmed job impacts, it emphasizes that AI will drive innovation and efficiency across its retail ecosystem. United States has urged Thailand and Cambodia to halt hostilities immediately following the deadly clashes along their disputed border. State Department spokesperson Tommy Pygott emphasized the need for civilian protection and a peaceful resolution, expressing grave concern over escalating violence and loss of life. The conflict, which erupted near ancient temples, has seen artillery exchanges, drone strikes, and air raids, prompting mass evacuations and diplomatic fallout. Washington's appeal joins similar calls from China and Malaysia, though Thailand has rejected third-party mediation, insisting on bilateral talks with Phnom Penh.
By the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution. We are also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution. We are also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution. We are also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution. We are also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution. We are also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border, and deeply.
The European Union has pledged 1.5 million euros in emergency humanitarian assistance to support victims of the recent violence in Yelawata, Benue State, Nigeria. The funding will be channeled through international partners like IOM, UNHCR, and UNICEF, focusing on shelter protection, water, sanitation, and multipurpose cash aid. The June 13th attacks displaced nearly 23,000 people, many of whom has already been uprooted by previous violence, exacerbating an already dire humanitarian crisis. EU Ambassador Gauchier Mignot emphasized the bloc's commitment to Nigeria, calling for stronger collaboration between the public and private sectors to addressing rising insecurity and malnutrition across the Middle Belt. The aid package is a part of a broader EU effort to support internally displaced persons and rebuild livelihoods in conflict-affected communities.
Have been displaced following from their homes in the Benue state since 2018, with more than 6,900 lives that have been lost and 400,000 people displaced between the year 2024 and 2025 alone. The recent wave of attacks in June forced almost 23,000 people to flee, exacerbating an already critical humanitarian crisis. The Yelewata attack on June 13th resulted in over 150 deaths and displacements. According to reports, the European Union funding, which will be implemented over 6 months, in the next 6 months in partnership with the International Organization for Migration, will focus on critical areas such as protection, shelter, water, sanitation and hygiene, as well as multi-purpose cash assistance for affected population. Million people have been displaced following from their homes in the Benue state since 2018, with more than 6,900 lives that have been lost and 400,000 people displaced between the year 2024 and 2025 alone. The recent wave of attacks in June forced almost 23,000 people to flee, exacerbating an already critical humanitarian crisis. The Yelewata attack on June 13th resulted in over 150 deaths and displacements. According to reports, the European Union funding, which will be implemented over 6 months, in the next 6 months in partnership with the International Organization for Migration, will focus on critical areas such as protection, shelter, water, sanitation and hygiene, as well as multi-purpose cash assistance for affected population. Million people have been displaced following from their homes in the Benue state since 2018, with more than 6,900 lives that have been lost and 400,000 people displaced between the year 2024 and 2025 alone. The recent wave of attacks.
Nearly 9 months after Bashar al-Assad was overthrown in Syria, the country is witnessing a return of over 2 million displaced citizens, marking a hopeful yet fragile chapter in its post-conflict recovery. While the fall of Assad ended the decades of authoritarian rule, returnees now face a landscape scarred by war, widespread destruction of homes and infrastructure. Severe hunger and a historic drought have left millions dependent on humanitarian aid. The newly formed government, though welcomed by many, is under mounting pressure to accelerate the reconstruction and deliver tangible reforms. Critics argue that progress has been painfully slow and without robust international support. Syria risks slipping back to instability. Columbia University has finalized a $221 million settlement with the Trump administration to resolve federal investigations into its handling of campus protests against the war in Gaza and allegations of anti-Semitism. The deal restores over $400 million in previously frozen federal research grants and includes sweeping reforms to student discipline, curriculum oversight, and diversity policies. Acting President Claire Shipman called the agreement a pivotal advancement, while Education Secretary Linda McMahon hailed it as a seismic shift in accountability for elite institutions. Colombia admitted no wrongdoing but agreed to adopt a federally endorsed definition of anti-Semitism and end programs deemed to promote unlawful DEI goals. Israel has refused to renew the visa of Jonathan Wichal, the top UN humanitarian official overseeing aid efforts in the occupied Palestinian territories, citing what it calls biased and hostile conduct that violates UN neutrality. The move comes alongside a new one-month visa limit for the international staff of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs (OCHA), severely restricting the humanitarian access to Gaza. UN officials say the decision is a direct response to their advocacy for Palestinian civilians, with Wichal previously condemning the dire conditions in Gaza as a death sentence and accusing Israel of using hunger as a weapon. The UN reports that more than 2 million Gazans are facing starvation, with food supplies dwindling and aid workers increasingly denied entry. The Israeli government has also blocked visas for leaders of other UN agencies, including the OHCHR and UNRWA, and formally banned UNRWA when it's operating in its territory. Critics warn that these actions violate Israel's obligations under the Geneva Conventions and threaten to collapse the humanitarian system in Gaza, where over 58,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began in October 2023.
Security Council meeting, Israel said it would impose restrictions on the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, known as OCHA, the main agency overseeing humanitarian efforts in Gaza.
Hundreds of OCHA employees are undergoing security vetting. Key employees will not have their permits renewed following clear evidence of strong affiliation with Hamas. Some were even involved in the atrocities of October 7. Israel will no longer grant automatic visas to OCHA's international staff. Visas will now be limited to 1 month's terms.
The UN said the inflammatory accusations against OCHA are unfounded, but that the restrictions against the organization will have an impact.
It makes things more complicated, right? That's the bottom line. It makes things more difficult. It makes things more challenging, and it's going in the wrong direction.
It's all part of an Israeli pattern to dismantle and discredit any
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres hailed the International Court of Justice (ICJ) recent advisory opinion on climate change as a victory for our planet, for climate justice, and for the power of young people to make difference. The ruling, issued on July 23, 2025, marks the first time the ICJ has formally declared the states have binding legal obligations under international law to combat climate change.
That the International Court of Justice has issued its historic advisory opinion. They made clear that all states are obligated under international law to protect the global climate system. This is a victory for our planet, for climate justice, and for the power of young people to make a difference. Young Pacific Islanders initiated this call for humanity to the world, and the world must respond. As the ICJ has laid out today, the 1.5-degree goal of the Paris Agreement must be the basis of all climate policies under the current climate change treaty regime. I welcome that the international.
And that's the end of the World 360. Stay tuned to CVR News English.